Temporary US-Iran ceasefire is set to end on Wednesday, but with no certainty over whether a second round of high-stakes talks will go ahead in Pakistan. Now, however, according to Reuters, the US Vice President J.D. Vance is going to be traveling to Pakistan on Tuesday for talks. He will travel with Steve Witkoff, Donald Trump's special envoy, and Jared Kushner, the president's son-in-law, who's also acting as an envoy. J.D. Vance led the U.S. team during 21 hours of failed discussions with Iran earlier in the month, which collapsed after Iran would not agree to U.S. demands to end the nuclear enrichment and hand over its 440 kg of highly enriched uranium. The Iranians had said there remained a deficit of trust with the United States, and they wanted assurances that they would not be attacked again if a final agreement is reached. Meanwhile, the U.S. President Donald Trump has posted on Truth Social on the recovery of enriched uranium from Iran. The president wrote, and I quote, "Operation Midnight Hammer was a complete and total obliteration of the nuclear dust sites in Iran. Therefore, digging it out will be a long and difficult process." Operation Midnight Hammer is the code name for an operation carried out by the United States last June, and it saw 125 U.S. military aircraft target 3 Iranian nuclear facilities. That's Fordo, Natanz, and Isfahan. So the U.S. forces used bunker buster bombs that were carried by B-2 Spirit stealth bombers, and the attack was the United States' official entry into the 12-day war, which began on June the 13th last year with the surprise Israeli strikes, and then it ended with a ceasefire on June 24th, 2025. My colleague Jessica Taneja has been following this story closely. She joins us now with more inputs. Jessica, first, what's the likelihood of talks taking place tomorrow when the ceasefire ends?
Well, there's been a lot of confusion from the White House about whether Vice President J.D. Vance would be traveling to Islamabad to attend the talks along with his son-in-law Jared Kushner, as well as his special envoy to West Asia, Steve Witkoff. Overnight developments tell us, Mark, that in the White House, at least till yesterday, the president publicly to various media outlets had stated that it would be Vice President J.D. Vance who'd again go for the talks to Islamabad. But later in the evening, some of the White House reporters had found out that his motor cavalcade turned into White House. So the time of departure and the announcement didn't really match there. So there was a little bit of confusion. But all that we can understand from the developments there is that there could be a possible delegation which will now visit Islamabad to attend those peace negotiations, given that the Iranians also agreed to be in the same place at the same time as the proposed talks go on. But if you hear from the Iranian side, they have entirely rejected not only the American demands for the 15-point plan that they had presented the last time around. It was a 20-hour negotiation the last time Vice President J.D. Vance, along with the U.S. delegation, was in Islamabad for those talks. Also, on the other hand, the Iranians say that they have this massive trust deficit when it comes to American commitments and the American president's political rhetoric and publicly in that sense, which has given a lot of not just confusion, but the Iranian side seem to have not taken that well. That messaging is not going down well because the American blockade of Strait of Hormuz continues. And over the weekend, we saw how things really reached a point where 2 of the vessels were fired upon by the Iranians. And before that, of course, the Iranian flagged ship that was seized by the United States carrying cargo containers known as the Tuska. But for the Americans, that particular container ship was problematic in a sense that it was carrying procurement material for Iran's ballistic missile program. But for the Iranians, it was one of the ships carrying important material required for the country, and it completely disregarded in that sense and said that they have the right to move those container ships. So while all of this continues in the background when it comes to the American blockade of the Strait of Hormuz and the Iranian retaliation in that sense that they will not come to the table for talks till the time the American blockade is removed from the Strait of Hormuz and their ports are not blocked by the American Navy out there. And particularly those demands are met apart from allowing Iran to enrich uranium, no moratorium, like it was being floated the last time around when J.D. Vance was in Islamabad. He had proposed that there could be a 20-year moratorium, something very on the uranium enrichment, something very similar to the JCPOA that you were mentioning that was signed in 2015, Mark.
True. Jessica, so there looks like there's plenty of background noise going on, before those talks take place. But if we come to what Iran has said, they are talking about new cards. They have new cards. Now, Iran does have some diplomatic support, but clearly they don't seem to be having any military backing, at least officially, from China and Russia. What pressure can they bring to bear, diplomatically?
Well, control of the Strait of Hormuz, firstly, has been a point of contention, and the Iranian islands surrounding it, 8 out of the 7 islands surrounding that vital choke point, energy choke point around, are in fact with the Iranians. So that has been difficult, with the Iranians even threatening there could be, sea mines and of course unmanned ships as well in the area that would be fast moving. So there's a lot of deployment in that sense from the Iranian side. But at the same time, look at the diplomatic support and the military support per se that Iran has received from both China and Russia. China especially with its Baidu navigation system, which is an alternate to the GPS that the Americans use. Now, Baidu satellite system is something, the information is what the Iranians have been able to utilize so effectively as to hit almost all major American bases and air facilities in West Asia. Talk about Al Udeid Air Base to the Sultan Air Base to Qatar's Ras Laffan as well. So in that sense, there has been a lot of satellite information help from the Chinese, and also there were reports suggesting in the recent past that China was planning to send a shipment of those shoulder-fired air defense systems.
Rocket launchers.
And that is something the Iranians would require at this point, given that there is a lack of air defense system. But that is also the case with Russia. Russia is also providing a lot of information related to targets as well as drone navigation, which Russia has learned a crucial lesson when it comes to, say, from the Ukrainian drone attacks repeatedly on them. In that sense, all of this help has been vital and crucial for Iran when it comes to getting support from both Russia and China. But if you see that in terms of diplomacy as well, both Russia and China have supported Iran in that sense, where they say that there should be quiet borders, and of course trade should be open to all, as well as a country's sovereignty should not be targeted or threatened in any manner.
Jessica Taneja joining us from the newsroom. Thanks very much.